Can you get tinder from completely green, freshly cut material to light a fire? Yes, you can. Is it fast? I would say you could light a fire in under 3 minutes using something very green. Can anyone do it? Absolutely. I think it's actually a really simple technique. If you'd like to find out how I process green material to light fires, whether using a ferro rod firelighter, cigarette lighter, matches, bow drill, or any other method used to get a fire going, I'm going to show you a technique on how you can get tinder from freshly cut green material really quickly. Stick around and I'll fill you in. G'day everyone, welcome back to the channel. So what is the whole point of this clip? Well, I think probably the primary driver behind me filming this clip is to show you guys that if I can get a fire going or a fire lit in the worst conditions using all the wrong tools, it's going to show you how easy it is that you can get a fire going with all the best equipment, particularly dry tinder. I'm going to break this video up into 4 parts to make it nice and simple. The very first thing I want to do is explain to you guys what a card scraper edge is, and it's different. It's not actually the same as a filed edge or a squared edge, but I want to show you guys a little bit about that. The second part is I want to show you guys the actual clip of lighting the fire, or the process which I actually use to go from completely green to preparing the tinder to lighting it, and actually just show you guys how quick it is. The third thing I want to do is the 2 problems. People have problems using ferro rod firelighters. I want to actually just clarify, generally most people have 1 or 2 problems or both of them together. It's the reason why they struggle getting a fire lit. I want to clarify that to help you guys. And the final thing I want to do is just to show you actually how easy it is to sharpen a proper card scraper out in the field. It is remarkably fast and remarkably easy. So hopefully collectively with these 4 points, I'm going to help you guys with your fire lighting when you're out bush. All right, the short and sweet of it, what is a card scraper edge? Quite simply, it's a piece of spring steel that has a polished spine, polished 2 faces, and a little hook has been formed on it. It's a very old-fashioned carpenter's tool used to scrape up really fine, fluffy shavings. Those shavings is what we would call tinder. Now, what a card scraper is not, it is not a squared edge, and it is not a filed edge. It's a polished edge with a formed hook. Now, why is this important for us as bushcrafters, firelighters, or people that spend time out in the wilderness? Is the fact that if you look at a machete is a piece of hardened steel that has all this space that is relatively unused on the tool. Now, if you look here, where I put my card scraper edge is I make sure that I've got a nice rounded spot to put my thumb, but the card scraper edge is between here and here. I round off the spine here because it's a place where I can hold it for some other card scraper edge operations, or using a machete as a draw knife. But essentially that's the position of the card scraper edge. Now, you'll see in this video, I'll probably use my bowler because it's definitely my favorite, but I will also use these smaller 12-inch Latin machetes. I call these a scout machete simply because it's one of those small, packable, easy to use machetes that you can get these anywhere, particularly the Tramontina ones. They are my favorite by far. But these short 12-inch Latin machetes are, I would say, purpose built for this process simply because it is a bit lighter. You're going to be scraping material with this. The 12-inch, there's less weight over the tip of it. You're going to find it's going to be a little bit faster using a lighter tool. Having said that, there's nothing stopping you using the same technique with a big 18-inch Latin. You could also put this on a knife as well. Mind you, I haven't had that much experience with that because I've been using machetes for so long. I don't tend to use small crafting knives as much as I used to, but I can't see any reason why you couldn't do this on the back of a knife. All right, here comes the fun part, how I process freshly cut green material into fluffy dry tinder and light a fire in about 3 minutes. I went around my farm looking for some material that I could use to film this clip with. It's been raining for weeks and weeks and weeks, and I had a big tree come down on one of the paddocks. I just chopped a branch off that. I also grabbed some bamboo. It's one of my favorite fire lighting tools and fire building tools for a lot of reasons. But I got a stand of old hammy on the farm. And you'll see me just shake one of the little sticks of a bamboo that I got in this clip because I actually tested this a few days before just to double check my technique and make sure that it was good for the video. The last one I cut, it was completely full of water. and it was moldy on the inside. It was really, really wet. Now, on that note, the moisture content of both these examples, I did a destruction test, or the oven destruction test, to get a very accurate understanding of actually how much moisture is in this. I was really surprised by the bamboo. It worked out to be about an 88%, I think from memory. I'll put the slides up in a minute. About an 88% moisture content. The hardwood, which looks like a tallow or a stringy bark or something, it was probably around the 60% mark, which isn't uber wet, but it's definitely green. It's still definitely wet. So from that point of the wet timber, how do we actually process it? Look, if it's bamboo, you're going to need to split it into a form that you can hold in on your hands. Next step is you're going to need to scrape it. First thing to do is you just scrape off anything green just to get out of the way. But you're looking for long, light strokes. If you push down too hard, the shavings get thicker. If you're short stroking it, you're going to end up with a pile of dust. The reason why it needs to be a long, gentle stroke is because you want a really fine ribbon of tinder that still stays attached to what you're actually working on. The reason for that is because if you've got these long ribbons and they're still stuck to the timber that you're shaving, it's going to allow a lot of airflow around that tinder bundle, and that's essentially why this process works. Is because it's so fine and air is moving around it, it drives off the moisture out of this tinder bundle really quickly. Now, as far as humidity and temperature goes, I've got this to work in very low, very cold conditions, very low humidity in colder climates. I've also got this to work in high humidity in hot climates. Now, it's going to vary for you guys. I'd say anything under 70% in hot weather and anything under 50% in cold weather, I think you should find that you're still going to hit the 3 or 4 minute mark as far as how long it takes for this tinder to dry out. But the truth is, guys, if you have some really, really wet timber, let it just dry out for a couple more minutes. It does dry out quickly. And the reason why you see me fondling that's a funny choice of word, fondling that tinder bundle, is because you can actually feel it drying in your hands. Don't breathe on it because it's very high humidity comes out of your mouth. Just let the air move around it. You can wave that bundle. That will also be helpful. But you can feel it when it's dry enough to strike. When you want to strike it, when you want to strike your ferro rod, pack that material down a little bit. It doesn't have to be a light, fluffy bunch. Just pack it down a little bit, form like a nice little pancake out of it, and strike away. All right, guys, why do people struggle with ferro rod firelighters? Absolutely, probably the two most common things that I find that people really struggle with is, number one, their tinder is far too coarse. You want really light ribbons of steel, ribbons of timber. Whenever I see people do this on YouTube that are really struggling, or other people that I've taught, they're getting these really heavy chips, like things that look like leaves. Leaves are far too thick. Even, to be honest, even grass is a little on the thick side. So you kind of want really like very light ribbons of timber for your tinder. Number two, and this is probably the more common one, when you see people striking these ferro rod firelighters, they're striking these little whispers of sparks. It's not what you actually want. What you are looking for is you want a hot bit of steel that stays lit for about 1 second. And you can see it whenever you do it over concrete, that it'll fly off and it'll hit the ground and it'll bounce. You can see these hot sparks flying everywhere. Essentially, that's what you're looking for. You want this big hot ribbon of steel coming and landing in your tinder bundle. One of the advantages of using the other side of your card scraper edge, not the side that you use to scrape up your tinder, flip the machete over, use the other side of that card scraper edge to strike your ferro rod into the tinder bunch. What you'll find is you're going to get a huge hot spark. It's much easier with a hooked card scraper edge than it is with any other edge that you're going to find. All right, guys, sharpening and maintaining your card scraper edge. Out of every single cutting tool I've ever come across, I would say the simplest to sharpen and the fastest to learn would have to be the card scraper edge. It is a very basic process, and I think it's manageable for just about anyone. I've actually got some comprehensive videos on the topic. If you look down below, I'm going to leave some links to those videos if you're more interested. I'm going to give you a quick example of how you would maintain this edge when you're out in the field. Now, there's actually there's two things that I'll be looking at. Well, there's actually three. Number one is, how do you put a card scraper edge on a machete? That's covered in the video below. Very fast, by the way. Number two is, how do I touch this up in the field? Touching up is seconds. It's very, very simple. Basically, you're going to use the rounded portion of this file, and you're going to move the hook up, and then you're going to move the hook back down again to reform that edge. You can do that probably about 6, 7, maybe 8 times before you need to re-hone the edges. Now, I would say that you could easily get one fire with the edge without doing anything to the edge. You can do one fire. If you want to tip it up, it takes a few seconds. So, you're looking at about 5, 6 fires before you actually need to go back to the stone. Now, if it gets really dull and that little quick 3 or 4 second technique to re-establish that hook doesn't work for you, you just go back to the stone. You polish the 2 faces, and that takes about 15 seconds aside. You then polish the spine. That takes another 5, 10 seconds. And then you just quickly touch up the faces again. What you're aiming to do is just to square those edges off as much as possible. Then you go back to your normal tip up routine. You basically strike up to move a tiny little bit of steel pointing up towards the spine. And then you strike it down again to form the hook. Now that's really it, guys. It takes seconds to sharpen this. The real advantage to using this on the machete is that you actually form both hooks on both sides at the same time. By default, you use one side for scraping tinder, and if you remember to flip the machete into your non-dominant hand, which I suggest doing anyway, for what I do for myself anyway, and strike the ferro rod in your dominant hand, you find you automatically use the other side of the card scraper edge. So you're going to be protecting the side that you use for timber, and you're going to be abusing the side that you use to strike your ferro rod firelighters. Guys, what do you think? I'm really happy to share that. That's something that I've been tinkering with for quite some time. I've known it for quite some time. I don't know why I haven't bothered to share it with you guys until now. Look, it's one of those techniques that hopefully might get you guys out of a bind. At the very least, hopefully it's going to teach you guys that it's a really easy way of getting your dry tinder and your ferro rod fire steels to work. This is going to help you whether you're using a Bic lighter, whether you're using matches, whether you're using an accelerant, whether you're using a bow drill or a flint and steel. This is going to help you with your fire lighting, and hopefully you can see that in less than ideal situations you will still be able to get a fire going. It's worth practicing. I should mention I highly doubt. I've never tried this in the rain. It's not going to work, guys. That's the reason why I've never actually tested it. But guys, if you found this helpful, you can help me. Likes, shares, comments, they all actually make a huge difference. I'd really appreciate the support for the channel, because again, I'm sure you heard this a million times for other makers out there. YouTube doesn't like channels like mine. Anything to do with machetes or knives or anything nefarious, they just kind of shun us. So look, support would be absolutely fantastic. If you want to jump on my Facebook page, that would make a huge difference. But look, guys, until next time, I'll see you later.